Power cables do power cables make a difference in an audio system? Yes, they do. Quite a big, profound difference. Or I will use the word improvement if they're designed correctly. Now that's going to sound a bit odd to some of you people out there, because you will look at your wall socket and you will ask yourself, and quite rightly so, why should this 1.5 meters or 2 meters of cable make any difference at all when I look out my window and I see kilometers of cable on these pylons? Yeah? So you look and you think, wow, we've got all of this cabling, and why should I invest in 1.5 or 2 meters from my wall socket to my audio equipment when I've got all of this distance outside? Well, it's a very good thought to have, but what you must remember is the voltage on that particular cable is so extremely high. We're talking about 4,000 volts, 400,000 volts. So the resistance is non-existent. It's at the time that we step down to 230 volts that the problems start coming in. And that's what we at IsoTek need to correct. But more importantly, we need to think about amperage. And the cable in your wall is most probably solid core with at least a 16, maybe 20 amp rating. So a VA, that stands for volt amps, would be the voltage times the amperage, VA. So if we have 16 amps cable at 230 volts, we've got 3,680 watts of potential power. Now this cheap black cable that you normally get free when you buy an expensive piece of audio electronics is actually designed down to a price, not up to a quality. And it has very low amperage with a conductor of typically 0.75, normally pitch copper, terrible PVC dielectric, that's the insulation around the cable. So at IsoTek, the first focus is maintaining high quality amperage so we can extract the power from the wall socket to the electronics, ideally via an IsoTek power cleaning system, and using high grade dielectrics, in some cases active isolation to stop the common mode noise getting into the cable and to stop the magnetic bleed from the cable. We can give your electronics a better performance. So this thin cable that you get free, imagine taking a 4-lane highway, which would be the cable in your wall, to a single-lane highway. Why would you want to do that? Doesn't make sense. Maintaining that 4-lane highway and getting all of that current and amperage out of your wall socket into ideally an IsoTek power cleaning system and then distributed to your audio electronics will have a profound improvement on your listening pleasure. What electrical properties? Well, I personally think that conductor purity is essential. We use the highest, the highest purity that we can. In our lower models, we use 6/9 oxygen-free copper. Generally, we silver plate that because silver is a great conductor. For example, our optimum cable, we actually use Ono continuous cast copper, so it's a very high purity. Dielectric is very important as well. That's the insulation. We use FEP, which is an aerospace grade material. We employ active shielding, so we reject the common mode noise, or the RFI, into the cable. In our Ascension power cable, we actually utilize individual shielding for every single conductor. We create a dielectric, which is virtually air, by wrapping a helix of FEP Teflon around the conductor. We deep cryogenically treat for crystal alignment. So, I mean, it gets quite technical, but we do these things because you can actually hear the improvements when this is done. Yeah, I do believe power cables are important, irrespective of the power cleaning system. You've got to, I mean, I've done demonstrations before where I've used just regular cables, and yes, the IsoTek product improves. But when we actually remove those cheap cables, not only does the IsoTek product improve the system more, but the cabling also improves it. So it's a logarithmic effect. If you imagine, like I said before, these black cables, you've got to see them as a roadblock. They're holding in the sound, so they're not releasing the energy. You know, it's terrible. Try it. You know, try one IsoTek cable to your source and do an A/B and see what you think. If you're happy with the outcome, then remove those black cables. It's worth to do. That's an excellent question. It really is good. But I'm going to kind of extend upon it. I'm going to answer it a little bit more fully. So the first cable I would change would be that to the source, right? That would be my first cable that I would choose to change. And then the second cable I would choose to change would be that to either the integrated amplifier or the stereo amplifier or the two mono blocks. And I'd be looking to choose a really good cable with a big cross-sectional diameter and high amperage for the power amps. That would be my first two steps. And then I would probably go preamp, DAC, depending on your system of course, and then fill in the gaps in between. And also, just to expand upon that recommendation, if you have the choice of one expensive cable or say our Premier cable, which is a little further up, second up in our range, it's better to invest on the whole system with Premier cables than the same amount of budget on just one cable, because that will be a quick way. And then change out the Premier to the source to a better cable, change out the Premier to the amp for a better cable. So, two ways to go, but that's for you to decide. Not buying one? Not buying a better one? That's, I think, try it is what I would say. Really do try it. I mean, there's a reason why a manufacturer gives you a less than $1 cable for free. They're not going to invest in that within their product because there's no perceived value. And therefore, it's going to be as cheap as possible, because the manufacturer of, say, a CD player will put all of their budget into the design of the CD player, and they'll throw in a power cord because they have to. And so it's never going to be very good. Which component? Well, I kind of answered that. I think the source does, and I think the power amplifiers do. I think the power amplifiers probably to a greater extent because of the square sectional diameter of that cheap cable. Remember, I said it was 0.75, and that's enough to deliver 10 amps. But if the largest power supply you have in your audio system is that of the power amp. So if you can feed that with a higher amperage pure copper cable with a larger cross-sectional diameter, that's good. It's good for dynamics, good for immediacy, good for leading edge dynamics and timing. Yeah, one of the things that you mustn't do ever is run a power cable parallel, next door to something like an interconnect or a speaker cable. That will give you less of a performance. So look behind your audio rack and try to make sure that the power cable crosses the interconnect or the speaker cable like that, not running parallel. That is a common mistake, easy to fix. So that is a good bit of advice for free for you. What would I say about our product? Okay, another good question. We are a specialist in our category. We don't design loudspeakers, for example. We don't design CD players, for example. We, for the last 25 years, a quarter of a century, have been designing high quality, class-leading, power-related products to completely remove the noise from the power line, to enable audio systems to perform at their very, very best. And that's important. I mean, if you had toothache, you wouldn't go and see a heart surgeon, and you wouldn't expect a heart surgeon to know about toothache, or a dentist to know about heart surgery. But there's some brands out there that jump into this category, or are just general supplying headphones, cable this, whatever. They're not going to be specialists. In the same way that if we were looking at athletics and you had a triathlete, that's an athlete that's specializing in 3 categories, they will never be as good as the dedicated athlete specifically for 1 category. And so true it is in the world in general. And IsoTek is a specialist, class-leading power brand. And we stand for innovation, we stand for high-quality design, components, parts, great customer service, great reliability, great integrity. That's what we are. We are a power brand specifically for enabling your system to perform at its very best through delivering the electronics that you have, the best, cleanest power possible.